Good evening, everyone. It's great to have you here. And welcome to the second Indigenous oration at Deakin. I want to say a few words, and we've got our Auslan interpreters here, so I'm going to speak in ancient Gunditjmara just to test you out. So, Nutnwa means welcome. Gullah and Wati is brothers and sisters. And Nutul Ni Min, which is, my name is Mark Rose, and I don't think there was a Gunditjmara word for Pro Vice Chancellor. But it's a shame there wasn't actually. It's great to have you here. It's a wonderful night, and I can't believe that we filled this huge venue. So thank you for coming out. And I know that we are competing with a couple other NAIDOC events this week. Dan Andrews, remember him, he's having his reception tonight at this very time. But Stan, you obviously pull a bigger crowd than Dan, all right? Stan, I'm actually feeling a bit intimidated. I've never seen a bigger picture of you behind me, looking over my shoulder. Oh, good. See how smooth we are here in the Indigenous office. So look, countrymen and colleagues, you're all very welcome. And Stan, I want to say welcome to you, and you'll be introduced formally later on. But in my language, Nutnwa, in your language, Yama, is that correct? And in the language of the Wurundjeri, Wabinjika or Wabanjenka. So, and of course, you and I both worked overseas for a long time, so ni hao. So. How's that going with Auslan? All right, you getting there? Well, I'm enjoying this. We're all here. You can see the exit signs. And should there be an emergency, can I suggest you line up behind me because I've got a recent history of survival. Oh. Maybe I haven't workshopped that joke enough, but I'll come back to it. Stan, it's great to have you here. I just want to say, as a young academic teaching in Asia, and you're away from home and family and mob for a couple of weeks, and you crawl back into your Sheraton hotel room, as nice as it is, it's not home and it's not mob. And when you flipped on the telly and saw Stan Grant, a black fella on CNN, it made me feel home and grounded. So it's really good, brother, to have you here. We're going to start off proper way, as we always do at Deakin. And I'm going to, in a moment to welcome to the stage an icon of this city. Auntie Joy has welcomed princes and kings and queens and presidents. In fact, you're on your way to have lunch with Obama. And I rang and you picked up the line, so I thought very privileged. But Auntie Joy, elders have a special role in this, in our being, in our place. And traditional owners, and we've got a couple of traditional owners here tonight, you have a particular job to do. You protect us, you look after us. Apart from being the bearers of language, of culture, your humanity and passion is so enthralling. And Joy, you and I co-chaired the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, and we've gone on lots of journeys together into some very rough and tough places. But your humanity is always glowed as a large light, which people just make their way to you. So Joy, can I welcome you to the stage to welcome us to your very important country?
Hello everyone, happy NAIDOC week, yay! Can I just say a few words about Mark? Yeah, he is a survivor, and for those of you that don't know, and I reckon that's what they don't know, Mark, is your recent survival, is that he shouldn't be here. Typical of him, he goes away overseas like he's talking to Grandstand. Grandstand, that's a better name, Grandstand. With Stan about, travelling overseas and all this, but he's had too many trips overseas and we nearly didn't have him. So I just want to say, when I got the call, I went, no, I don't believe this, and then I went, oh no, he's not going to leave us, he's not. But like a strong good Njamara, he survived, and we're so glad to have him here, we really are. It is true, we've been on some journeys together and really loved them and learnt a lot about each other and learnt a lot about society in general. And of course, we're both social justice workers. But when I was asked to chair the Royal Commission, I said, I can't do that. On my own, I need a man to do men's business. I chose Mark. I chose Mark because of not only who he is and what he's done in our community, but he's also a very truthful and loyal man. And I knew that he would be able to take the steps that we needed to take and that he would stand by me no matter what happened. And I meant that to get the recommendations up for implementation. They're not as much as what we would have liked, but the ball hasn't stopped rolling there, and I think youth justice in general has improved. I know that because I'm back working at Parkville Youth Justice. So, a journey together is better than not at all. I would like to say to you that we meet in this beautiful auditorium on a part of my father's traditional lands. I am so proud to be the oldest surviving daughter of a family of 10. And I wish my father was here every time I've had this wonderful opportunity to speak and also to welcome people to country. I want to thank my father for who he is and what he stood for, and he being one of the men that was rejected at first for World War I, but with this, sad depletion of about 30,000 soldiers, our men were called up again, and my dad was one that put his hand up to re-enlist. He did say to me when he was passing, and I was 5 days from turning 14, I asked him to leave me with something, and he said to me, you are who you are, be proud of who you are, but you are no better than anyone else. I kind of took a big breath just like I did then, and I think I always will every time I say that, because at that time of life he'd been through some, terrible business, terrible racism, terrible life, but stood up strongly, fought for this country. And his family, and my mum told me later on that when he said that, because when he was in the ditches with his mates, didn't matter who you were, didn't matter where you come from, didn't matter what your religion or your belief was, you were mates and you were there fighting for family and country. So I'd like to acknowledge all ancestors, elders and communities across our great nation and neighbouring islands. I want to also acknowledge elders that are in the audience, and for the elders this week, I hope you have a great time, but not only just this week, for whatever your time is. For each of our community that are here, I acknowledge you, your family and your community. To each of you that have bothered to spend the time to come here, and of course who wouldn't in the present of Stan Grant, but thank you for coming, because it gives me an opportunity to acknowledge you, your belonging and your culture. Of course, I want to acknowledge Stan, a proud Wiradjuri man, a man that stood tall longer than people know. Today I was just at a big event, a very political event, and I had a woman say to me, I get worried about Stan Grant. And I said, why is that? Oh, don't you think he's become very opinionated? And I told Stan this tonight. And I said, what makes you think, why do you say that? And she said, well, that's not what the ABC employed him for. I said, well, as far as I know, they employed him as Stan Grant, a Wiradjuri man. And if he's a journalist, it doesn't matter whether you're black or white, you're allowed to be opinionated. So she was kind of taken back. But I'm sorry to say, and I'm sorry I had to tell that to Stan, but that's what still exists out there, and that just breaks my bloody heart. But Stan is bigger than those words, and I don't have to talk him up, and I'm not going to do that, but to say, I'm just so happy to have you on my father's country and that you'll always be welcome here. Can I thank Deakin University? You're just an amazing uni. I'm not going to go on about you, but thank you, each and every one of you. No, I sincerely mean that. And also what you've done for our communities, all of your amazing staff. Our students get that wonderful opportunity, and I can only thank you from the bottom of my heart. I usually bring branches of gum leaves with me. I'm sorry I did leave them at the other event. Nevertheless, I'm going to send you on a journey. We're known as the manna gum people. I would ask you to, when you see a manna gum, not just any eucalypt, a manna gum, I'd ask you to stop. And if you can't reach the branch, that's okay, because not a lot of time you can, because once the bark falls up, it's a long way to crawl up that slippery white trunk. But when you see the opportunity to take a leaf from that branch, please do so. And I'll thank you, Noj Kumwa, because it means that you are welcome to everything from the tops of those amazing trees to the roots of the earth. So it's about the spirit of what we can offer to you. And I'd also like to say thank you because you join with us to honour the spirits of our ancestors who have nurtured this very land here for a very long time. And also together as we go forward, let's understand and appreciate and give proper recognition and respect to each other. My language is the Woi Wurrung. Wamenjaka Wurundjeri Balak Yemen Kundi Bek. And you are most welcome to the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people. Noj Kumwa. Thank you.
As I said, Joy is an icon of the city, a treasure indeed. And thank you very much for those kind words. And Stan, you've been grilled a little bit. We were trying to get you to do this oration. I asked around some of your brothers in Sydney for your phone number, and one of them gave it to me, and then he phoned me and said, "Don't tell Stan I gave out his phone number." And I said, "That's all right, I'll say I got it for Warren Mundine, all right?"
Have you still got it?
I'll give you Warren's number too. That's why you didn't pick up, but... Joy, thank you for that welcome, and we do things a proper way. And to herald Stan to the stage in a few moments, we've actually got a relative of yours, a nephew who comes from... your mum was a Bamblet, right? Oh, yeah, right. So I'll get that right. So Robbie Bamblet is a preeminent cultural performer, performing for the World Indigenous Conference on a number of times, and I've known Robbie for a long time because there was a time here in Victoria there was a school called Koori Open Door Education, and we still laugh about. I don't know who ran the school, Robbie, whether you kids or whether it was me, but I'm so proud of how all you kids have turned out and how you've stood up and really project the culture in such an authentic and honest way. So Robbie Bamblet, you're not in for detention, you're being called to the stage to herald Stan in.
I want to pay my respects to the local custodians, people of the Kulin Nation, to elders past and present, and those of the future. And yes, he was my principal back in the day. I won't go any further than that. But yeah, I'm going to play a little bit of this lovely instrument. Oh, talking to the mic. I'm going to play a little bit of this lovely instrument, the yidaki or yigi yigi. Yeah, so when I play yigi yigi, everyone gets jiggy jiggy. Yeah? All right, let's get it going.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Enjoy your night. Safe travels home.
Those tunes were to settle us into hearing the words we're going to ask Stan to come up for in a moment. But before we do that, Ian, can I invite you to the lectern? And I just want to say, Ian, I want to recall one moment recently. We launched the Indigenous strategy earlier this year, and you unfortunately weren't able to be there in person, but you came in by Zoom, and there was just silence in the whole room. The way that you express your commitment and your passion, it tells me that this is the right place for me to be working, and that this is the right place for the community to come and learn and grow. So, Ian, thank you, and I'll let you have the microphone.
Thank you, Mark. Following Mark is always a difficult place to be. It's my privilege to be Deakin University's Vice-Chancellor, and I'm just going to say a very few words tonight on this very special occasion. Auntie Joy, can I thank you for your welcome to this beautiful country? It's always a privilege to have you in the room with us, welcoming to your country. To Mark, providing outstanding Indigenous leadership to our university and well beyond our university. To members of our council, our Chancellor John Stanhope's here, members of my executive, across the university, many staff and community members, but above all to Stan. Thank you so much for honouring us tonight and delivering the second Indigenous oration to this community. I am only going to say a few words. We all leave footprints in the sands of time as we live our lives. On Wurundjeri, Wadawurrung country, Gunditjmara Mara country, where Deakin is privileged to have its campuses, there have been those footprints left in the sands of time for many, many years before the European history of this nation evolved. And I think part of tonight is reflecting on the importance of those footsteps that came long, long before us. I'm the least qualified person in the room to be saying this because I've probably been an Australian citizen shorter than just about anybody in this room. But that relationship with country is so important and is so much a part of why Deakin has its commitment to its Indigenous strategy and, as we put in our strategic plan, to make sure that we as a university help tell both the full history of this country and then, as is so hard to do, learn from that history to build a truly inclusive, respectful and distinctly Australian future. And I think those two things have to be woven together, and that's part of our commitment as a university. I can say many, many more things. Stan will put it far more eloquently tonight, so I'm just going to get on with my introduction. And I think probably a few months ago, a few people might have needed introduction to Stan. I think absolutely now, nobody really needs introduction to Stan. He is an Australian who has distinguished himself with service to journalism. I have on my notes a long list of the interviews he's carried out with many, many people around the world. We don't need to say that. He has made a contribution, not just through his journalism, but through his intellect, his passion, his wisdom, and he's very much a polymath. He reads widely, he brings together both traditional Australian perspectives and the wisdom of the globe woven together in a distinctly wonderful way. So I'm going to stop at this point and simply say, let's welcome Stan Grant to the stage to deliver Deakin's 2023 Indigenous Oration.
Marangiarea, Badu Wiradjuri Gibia, Diramadilinya, Badu Wiradjuri, Nadu Yindimara, Wiradjuri mine, Gamilaroi mine, Darawal mine, Nadu Yindimara, Wurundjeri mine, Wurundjeri Nurumba. I'm a Wiradjuri man. I want to pay respects to my people, the Wiradjuri, my mother's people, the Gamilaroi, and my great-grandfather's people, the Darawal. Also want to pay respects to the Wurundjeri people on whose land we are meeting here tonight. And I want to begin on land, on country. Recently I was back on my land, Wiradjuri country, a land that mourns with the sorrows of our history. On that land, the colonisers fought what was called an exterminating war My family is born out of that war. Driving through the land, I felt its pull. I saw the golden light of the sun bathing the hills. I saw it illuminate a church steeple. I was drawn to it. I drove there and got out. The church was a place of affliction. Every painting inside depicted the crucifixion. When I walked outside, I saw a man emerge from the convent behind the church. He met me and stared into my eyes. His eyes held an intense pain. We walked and he told me how he had come to this place of prayer to find peace. He took me to a room, an old bedroom upstairs. He said to me, "This is where I lock away the darkness. This is where I lock away the darkness." He told me that he puts all of his tortured memories inside that room and closes the door. Here, in a land of lament, I met a man of lament. Lament. A cry to a silent God, an absent God, a God who does not hear our prayers. And if God does, then God does not always answer. The God who makes us wait, who waits for us, we hope. This past Easter, I pondered lament and I thought of my own people and our pain in our land. Easter is that time of reflection, a time of affliction, of abandonment, of being forsaken. It is a time of the death of God. I've always felt that it is the time of year that speaks to me most as a First Nations person, as a Wiradjuri Gamilaroi Dharawal person. For me, it is not a time of resurrection. I don't rush to Easter Sunday, but I dwell in the darkness of Saturday, the day after the crucifixion, the day when those closest to the crucified Christ shivered in fear. In that day, there is no promise of tomorrow. In that day, there is no hope. Faith itself feels destitute. It was the dark Saturday that I felt. I felt in my bones when I was a little boy. I felt it in the church on the Three Ways Bridge mission on the outskirts of Griffith in New South Wales. That was a home, spiritual and physical, to my family. It could have been any of the missions scattered across our country, the places where we were banished, yet places we found refuge in. There was a tiny wooden church on the mission. I remember cramming into the pews in my best Sunday clothes with my hair spit down. My uncle was the pastor, an old fire and brimstone style preacher. His white shirt would soon be stained with sweat. He would mop his brow with a handkerchief. He clutched an old black King James Bible in one arm, yet never needed to read from it. He could recite the scripture from memory. With his other arm, he would point, each word landing, and I felt always landing on me. My head would ache in that church. I would twitch and look out the window. I felt a heavy weight in that church. I felt it in other black churches, places where our people come to worship, because we pray differently. We sing differently. Our hymns are songs of sorrow. The old rugged cross. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, an emblem of suffering and shame. Suffering and shame. Where are you, God? Why do you forsake us, God? Ours was the church of the forsaken. Some might wonder, why am I talking about God, about church, about Christianity? Is that not the religion of empire? Is Christianity not the legacy of colonization? Yes. Certainly since the time of the conversion of the Roman Emperor Constantine, Christianity has been the divine right of kings. It has joined with power and tyranny. Yes, those proclaiming the word of God came to this land with a Bible in one hand and a gun in the other. The doctrine of discovery was a papal decree. Any land not belonging to a Christian monarch was free for the taking. Yes, God sat astride empire. But that was not our God. God did not arrive here with the first fleet. We knew God. We walked in God's creation, in the land that God had given us. We told stories to God. We painted God on our rocks and on our bodies. We had a word for God, Baiami, our Creator. When we heard stories of Jesus, we heard the story of a dark-skinned man in a land of empire, oppressed and colonized, a tribal man. We heard the story of someone speaking back to power. We heard the words of an ancestor. And in the crucifixion, we felt the wounds, we felt the shame, we felt the abandonment. Easier it might be if I could dismiss God entirely, if I could see God as a myth, a fantasy. Indeed, the question of the existence of God, of the place of faith, is one of the determining questions of our age. But right now, I don't want to ask, is God real? I want to ask a harder question. Does God care? This is the abiding question of lament. Lament is described in Romans chapter 8, verse 26. Sighs too deep for words. Sighs too deep for words. I know that sigh. I know what it is to breathe in despair. I know lament. Lament is not a word we use too often today. It is a word fallen from favour. We speak of reconciliation. We speak of rights. We may even speak of justice. Sometimes we speak of healing. We speak of truth. But these words fall short for me. These words are far too convenient. They are words more often designed to convince, words to measure ourselves by. They are words of politics, and I am not a person of politics. I seek the impossibility of existence, the reach for eternity, in a world where politics reduces us to only what is possible. I am a person of faith. I am a person of belonging. I am a person of country. I am a person of kinship. I seek the things that endure, the things of our soul, and I am a person of sorrow. Lament is a place of deep sorrow. It is a place of cries. As the writer and musician Michael Card described it, a sacred sorrow. He said this is the reach for God in the lost language of lament. The lost language of lament. We have lost the words for lament, haven't we? We have replaced those words with political words. Tonight, I want to speak the unfashionable language of lament. I want to use other words too that are out of circulation or have lost their true meaning. Words like love, like divine. I want to use those words to speak back to this age. In a year of referendum where our people cannot but help feel judged, where our truths struggle to be heard over the din of others' opinions, I want to reclaim lament. As Michael Card said, we must relearn lament. As he wrote, without lament, these wounds continue to fester. Theologian Mark Vroegop tells us lament invites us to grieve and trust, to struggle and believe. We know that, don't we? We First Nations people in this room, we know that struggle. We know that grief, that challenge of trust when our trust is betrayed. But that is not our struggle alone. It is the struggle we all share. We grieve, all of us. We want to trust, all of us. We need to believe, all of us. But we are all betrayed by an age of division, of ruthless contests for power, of rapacious exploitation of people and the planet, of cynical opportunists pretending to be leaders. In an age of media that thinks debate is finding the point of difference and then widening it to stoke the fires of a toxic social media with its self-righteous anger, its performance, its craven, desperate need for validation, for likes, its Twitter pylons, its cancellations. We live in an age of prosecution without process, no truth but our own truths. No wonder this has been called an age of anger. Lament too can be an expression of anger, but not the self-righteous anger of our time. No, an eternal, humble, righteous anger. We have the right, even the responsibility to be angry, but we do not have the right to hate. For me, lament is ultimately a holy state of grace. Grace, like love, like forgiveness, like divine, like lament itself, another word you won't hear in our news. Mark Vroegop says lament is a rich but untapped reservoir of God's grace. Grace takes us beyond politics. Now, some here tonight may have no need of God, no belief in God. That's another mark of our age. The death of God, as Friedrich Nietzsche foretold. But surely we have a need for grace, and we need to relearn lament. As Mark Vroegop says, without lament, we won't know how to process pain. Silence, bitterness, and even anger can dominate our spiritual lives instead. Tell me that we need more bitterness, more silence, and I will stop speaking now. Tell me we need more politics, and I may as well leave this stage. No, we do not need more politics. The French writer and Nobel laureate Albert Camus, speaking into a time of catastrophe, of war and horror nearly a century ago, told us that we must put politics back in its true place. It is, he said, an anachronistic language. Put politics back in its true place. Politics fails us. Certainly for my people, politics is a poor substitute for love. Noel Pearson, in his recent Boyer lectures, said, "We are a much unloved people." That is his lament. Surely he is right. We are a much unloved people. Where is the love when my people are the most impoverished and imprisoned people in the nation? Politics rules in the absence of love. Lament breathes in the absence of love. Politics sings in a different register. Politics reaches for the high note. Lament is sung in a minor key. I hear the song of lament in my country. I hear it by a river. I hear it in the wind through the trees. I hear it in the voices of my people, people who know suffering, people who know what it is to struggle to stay alive in our world. These people who have every reason to abandon hope and yet hope anyway. In the words of the great African-American writer W.E.B. Du Bois, the hope, not hopeless, but unhopeful. Not hopeless, but unhopeful. Lament. Du Bois saw it when he looked upon the face of his newborn son, and as he wrote, saw in those bright, wondering eyes that peer into my soul, a land whose freedom is to us a mockery and whose liberty is a lie. I wonder if my parents looked upon me as a newborn and saw the same thing. Wondered, where is our hope in a land that had squeezed the hope out of us? This country whose freedom to us is a mockery, whose liberty to us is a lie. Lament. I saw that in the aching neck and stooped shoulders of my father, exhausted with the weight of caring and providing for our family and the weight of our country's history. He would come home from a day at the sawmill to little more than a hot bath with water that Mum had boiled in a wood-fired copper and a meagre meal. I would look at him in that bath, the water stained black with grit and sap and blood, his eyes closed with little to sustain him but his own will. At other times, I would see my dad slumped in a chair, silent, lost in his thoughts, with his eyes staring into an unknown future. I would see Mum sometimes walk past and gently rub Dad's neck, and in that touch, that gentle, pure love, my parents would renew the will to face just one more tomorrow. And all of their tender tomorrows led me here. Lament. It was there in our old car, travelling from town to town. Mum and Dad in the front, 4 children crammed in the back, no heating, our breath steaming the windows on long, cold, dark nights. That was the rhythm of my childhood. The melody was the hum of the tyres on the road. Breath, bodies, bald tyres, our own little orchestra, our own song of lament. We were always moving from one town to another. For me, too many schools to count. An education in being an outsider in an Australia that was made for other people. Staying alive, surviving. In our land, our home, but with nowhere to call home. Rather than the language of politics, it is to the poets I have turned for the words to measure our woe. Poets like William Blake. In his poem Milton, in honour of another poet, John Milton, Blake imagines Milton coming down from heaven. Milton enters Blake and they embark on a journey of the soul. Blake wrestled with God and the brutality of our world and wondered how God could allow it, or indeed was God, a heartless God, the author of it. As he wrote, I will lament over Milton in the lamentations of the afflicted. My garments shall be woven of sighs and heartbroken lamentations. The misery of unhappy families shall be drawn unto its border, wrought with the needle with dire sufferings, poverty, pain, and woe. Along the rocky island and thence throughout the whole earth, there shall be the sick father and his starving family. Lament, affliction. These are the words of poets, and poets speak the language of the soul. Elie Wiesel, the Jewish writer who survived the Nazi death camp, said, "Poets exist so that the dead may vote. Poets exist so that the dead may vote. So that the dead may be heard, so that history shall not be buried, so that justice will not be denied. In poets, my ancestors speak." Elie Wiesel wrote so that the voices of the dead of Auschwitz would forever be heard. He looked into the abyss of the absence of God. In his novel Night, he recounts watching the hanging body of a child. Where is God? Where is he? Someone behind me asked. For more than half an hour, the little child in the noose stayed there, struggling between life and death, dying in slow agony under our eyes. And we had to look him full in the face. He was still alive when I passed in front of him. His tongue was still red. His eyes were not yet glazed. Behind me, I heard the same man asking, "Where is God now?" And I heard a voice within me answer him, "Where is he? Here he is. He is hanging here on this gallows." Yes, Elie Wiesel was right. God died in Auschwitz. God dies on our battlefields and in our torture chambers. God dies in lonely prison cells. God died in the wars in our country, the massacres of my people. God died as God died with the hanged child. God died with Jesus on the cross, who cried out, "Why was he forsaken?" God dies with us, the suffering peoples. We are the afflicted. Simone Weil, the French philosopher and mystic, called affliction the chill of indifference. It is, she said, the metallic chill that freezes all those it touches down to the depths of their soul. Affliction is the cold hand of fate. The afflicted, my people, know that cold touch. Simone Weil said that God withdraws from the world. It is this space that allows us to live. In this space we suffer. But it is in the absence of God that God lives. It is the fact that the world is imperfect and at times evil that God can be revealed. For what would God mean in a world of perfection? These are the things that Simone Weil contemplated. God may leave the world, but leaves the trace of love. Simone Weil says, "Only the afflicted know the truth. All others lie." This is the truth I was born into, the truth of affliction in that little black church of the forsaken. Lament. I heard it in the sweet sounds of my aunties singing in that old wooden church. I read it in the book of Lamentations. My eyes fail from weeping. I am in torment within. My heart is poured out on the ground because my children are destroyed. The book of Lamentations is one of the shortest books of the Bible, just 5 poems. It sits outside of so much scripture. There is no redeeming God. There is no saviour. There is relentless suffering. Hope flashes briefly, then hope too vanishes. There is just the waiting for God. In Hebrew, Lamentations is the Eker, How? How, God, can you abandon us? How, God, can you allow our enemies to slaughter us? It is written at a time when Jerusalem has been ransacked by the Babylonians. How deserted lies the city, once so full of people. How like a widow is she. This is a place of bitter tears and no comfort. The roads to Zion mourn. The roads mourn. The land mourns. How my people know the sigh of our own country. Lament. I read it in the words of the Uluru Statement from the Heart, a cri de coeur, a cry from the heart. Read it again with lament. Read it again as a God-filled document. It talks of the spiritual notion of sovereignty. It speaks of the eternal connection with Mother Earth, birth, life, and then to be returned, united with our ancestors. Listen to its language of lament. Children aliened from their families. The torment of our powerlessness. The Uluru Statement spoke from the afflicted to a nation that has never loved us. It spoke into the spiritual void of our country. It spoke from those who could feel God forsaken. It spoke to God or spirit or soul or earth or Bayami, whatever words we wish to use. It spoke into the absence of love, the absence of truth, the absence in all of us. I don't think we have ever truly heard those words. I don't think that our ears are tuned to words of lament. The words of torment and alienation don't test well in a poll-driven world of politics. And the voice has become a thing of politics, captured by politics, debated by politicians. Yes, no, pick a side. It's too much. It's not enough. The voice is swallowed up in the cacophony of 24-hour news. Of course, it would always come to this. The Uluru Statement from the Heart diagnosed something deeper. It diagnosed the malaise of modernity. For here is the truth, all of our truth. We are all tormented. We are all aliened. The modern project for 3 centuries has been a project of disenchantment. From the 17th and 18th centuries' Enlightenment, we have celebrated the supposed triumph of reason until reason itself has erased all of our horizons. The Enlightenment, for all its promise of freedom, carried too the germ of destruction. In the philosopher Immanuel Kant's challenge for us to dare to know, he gave birth to the conjoined twins of democracy and tyranny. There was the rights of man, but there was also the gulag and the gas chamber. Our human reason brought God to earth in time. Science made us gods, with the capacity now to destroy life on this planet. History became our new faith. In history, we saw our triumph, our ever unfolding destiny, progress ever onward. The bodies piled up by the roadside, war upon war, invasion after invasion, were all accounted as the price we have to pay for utopia. And now we are here in a world of limitless technological possibility, previously unimagined wealth, life expectancy that touches immortality, and yet we are facing our own obsolescence. Artificial intelligence now offers us a world beyond the human. Is this what we intended? Am I being too bleak, perhaps? But ask yourself this: can we truly deny that there is not something missing in our world? Can we deny that we have not become disenchanted with disenchantment? For all the promise, democracy is in retreat around our world. Our environment is catastrophic. We have never before been so connected, yet we know that people feel increasingly estranged. The theologian John Milbank said recently, modernity may now be in crisis because it is modernity. Liberal democracy may now be in crisis just because it is not in the end sustainable, because it has no way ultimately to contain an unrestricted liberty of wills without a horizon of the common good, save by recourse to draconian organisation and surveillance. Think about that. He is right, isn't he? We have unrestricted liberty, yet an irresolvable clash of wills. We compete for our rights with no basis for a common good. Just now, what can too often appear to be a Hobbesian war of all against all. And we are monitored and controlled by ever greater surveillance. To John Milbank, modern civilization, the West, is exhausted, and there is nothing yet to replace it. There are those who believe that we can endlessly flatten out our society to contain more and more of our competing will. And then there are others who believe we will collapse unless we restore a draconian top-down order. The evidence shows us that neither is sustainable. This is the source of our conflict. From an ungovernable America, a divided, barbed wire bordered Europe, a war-ravaged Ukraine, the wars of identity in every corner of our globe, the rise of an authoritarian China. The centre does not hold, to quote Yeats. Into this comes a cry from our heart, our voices of lament, asking us in this country to imagine a better future. What chance does it have? How do we speak enchantment in a world so disenchanted? How do we speak of grace in a graceless age? How do we speak of love in such a loveless world when love is mocked? When television programs trash love? When it is turned into a reality TV spectacle where desperate, craving people believe they can marry at first sight? Love. I think of Bell Hooks, the African-American writer, who said, "We have been wounded in the places where we would know love. We've been wounded in the places where we would know love." Still, she believed that love was the only answer to the hate inflicted on us. It is the active love that the Russian writer Fyodor Dostoevsky wrote about in The Brothers Karamazov. In that novel, the elder priest is talking to the mother of an ailing child, a mother without faith. She is someone who says she may love humankind, yet not love any person in particular. The priest tells her of the power of active love. Avoid fear, he says. Above all, avoid all lies. All lies. Keep a watch on your own lie and examine it every hour, every minute. Fear, Dostoevsky writes, is simply the consequence of every lie. Dostoevsky was speaking back to his age, an age of disenchantment with the power of love, and that's why he speaks to me still. We must, in our country, examine our lie, our inability to speak the truth of our history, the truth of our country. In our lie, in our silence, is our fear. And it is that fear that robs us of our ability to love. Dostoevsky laments the absence of love. He sets the faithless mother the greatest task. He tells her to abandon her own fears, her own faint-heartedness in attaining love. He told her she must look beyond the dream of love to find the harder love, active love. Active love is a harsh and fearful thing compared with love in dreams, he writes. Fearful? Yes. We are afraid of it. Throughout human history, we have preferred to slaughter each other than to love each other. We have preferred the fantasy love of dreams, the Hollywood love, the reality TV love, to the deep love of humanity. Love in dreams, Dostoevsky writes, thirsts for immediate action, quickly performed, and with everyone watching. Indeed, it will go as far as the giving even of one's own life, provided it does not take long, but is soon over, as on stage, and everyone is looking on and praising. Married at first sight. We would rather the abomination of television love than the deep, active love that may just keep us alive. Active love, writes Dostoevsky, is labour and perseverance. So what chance my people's great appeal to love? What chance the lament of the cry from the heart? And yet we persevere. My people know what it is to persevere. My people know active love. And in that perseverance, Dostoevsky tells us, is our miracle. Even in that very moment, he says, when you see with horror that despite all your efforts, you not only have not come nearer your goal, but seem to have gotten farther from it, at that very moment, I predict this to you. You will suddenly reach your goal and will clearly behold over you the wonder-working power of love. Love, writes Dostoevsky, is such a priceless treasure. You can buy the whole world with it. Go, he said, and do not be afraid. That's our challenge. Are we afraid? Are we afraid of our truth? Are we afraid of our love? Would we rather the love of dreams or the active love of truth and justice? In lament, there is love. There is reaching for love in the absence of love. There is, if you like, reaching for God in the absence of God. That to me is more than recognition, more than reconciliation, more than healing, and yes, even more than justice. Those are the things of politics and law, things to be measured and counted. Lament is not wallowing in our suffering. It is not surrender. It is not resignation. It is affirmation. To cry out against it all. To pray into the silence with no promise that our prayers will be answered, but to pray anyway. To hope anyway. To love anyway. In lament, there is truth. The truth of affliction. The truth that leads us to each other. The truth that leads us to love. I will long remember that man of lament that I met briefly on my own country. In a land where I still feel the presence of my ancestors, where the land groans with the weight of our history and the deep sadness of what has happened there. That man of sadness that I met on my land. As I left him, I told him, "Be gentle with yourself. Remember," I said, "my land loves you." Mandangu. Thank you.
Thank you, Stan. I'm Liz Johnson, DVC academic at Deakin, where I have the privilege of working directly with our Indigenous teams, and I am here to say thank you. In your powerful and poetic address, you have reminded us of our choices and our obligations to each other, and the truth that is found through deep listening, acknowledgement, and acceptance of the experience, views of all. The title of your address echoes loss and grief. As you beautifully explained, a lament is an expression of grief, a remembrance and love. You remind us that we must acknowledge and address our whole history, the good and the bad, so we can include all Australians as our future. You remind us of the spiritual and the emotional dimensions of our history and our interactions. We must acknowledge the hurt and damage that comes from unfettered self-interest, prejudice and ignorance. We must remember that when we hurt each other, we also hurt ourselves, making us lesser and less able. Your theme of lament asks us to bring our whole selves to understanding and linking to each other, to embrace a holy state of grace as a pathway to healing. You also point to hope and the opportunity that we have to draw on the oldest living culture in the world, a culture that understands and lives in balance with its environment, a culture that celebrates the collective, the community, the caring, a culture that can show another way. We must understand that success will come from listening, heeding advice, and self-determination for all, in learning from and with Indigenous peoples and embracing better ways of working together. We can create a better Australia that can flourish. We can address persistent disadvantage, the terrible consequences of dispossession, and our own emptiness. In this year of referendum, you show us that we have a choice between moving forward together or stasis and decline. We can choose to be better, to acknowledge, celebrate, and engage with the great gift of Indigenous peoples, knowledges, and culture. Stan, I hope that we have all listened with our whole hearts and our whole minds. We have a gift for you as a token of our thanks. This shield was created by Tongarong elder Mick Harding, featuring the creator spirit Bunjil, the wedge-tailed eagle. Please accept it from us as a mark of our respect and our gratitude for your presentation today. Please join me once more in thanking our orator for this Indigenous oration, Stan Grant.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. I own some land on my own country. A few acres. I'm going back out there this weekend. I'm going to put this on my country, from one gift to another. Thank you.
If I could have that attention in any lecture I gave, I would. Stan, that was magnificent. Thank you so much. We're going to move into the final part of the evening, but I need to thank a number of people. And Liz, I want to thank you for your leadership and allowing us to do some crazy things in the Office of Indigenous Strategy. And to events, I want to thank Megan and Darcy, who works with Liz for the work, and my team, Tom, Steph, Helen, Chase, Ronnie and Drew, for all the work that you've done to keep Indigenous on the front page of Deakin University, not in the bad sense, Ian, but in a very positive sense. Look, what a wonderful message. Stan, you look into the soul and reach into the heart of black and white Australia, and your words for blackfellas are both a spear and a shield, and we value them. It's our resilience that you contribute to, my brother, so thank you so much for that. It'd be remiss not to mention that this is 2023, the year of the voice, and I don't want to go into it in great depth because we are having opportunities across the university to do that. But I just want to say that the spirit of 1967, where people convinced other people over afternoon tea parties, we need to return to that. So when you go to dinner parties and the matter is raised, feel free to have that conversation, because we do have to reach into the heart and soul of this nation. For my bit, I've got a strategy at the moment that I will hold off 5 stars for Uber drivers until they promise me they're going to vote yes. And I'm going to bring about, yes, 1 Uber driver at a time. So, Gullet, Wati and Jambi, brothers, sisters and special friends, thank you for coming tonight. I'm going to welcome to the stage in one very moment a gift that we have in our community, a young woman who is a shining star, and we came across Brianna in the Koori Academy of Excellence, which the founder is here tonight in the second row, so Lionel, who is Stan's cousin, I believe, created the Koori Academy of Excellence, which operates across the state. And a young girl, I remember you sang at our graduation and you were just knocked it out of the ballpark. You went on to perform on Australia Got Talent, although your auntie Luana says it should be renamed Wemba Wemba's Got Talent. Okay. But that's work in progress. As we move on to the song True Colours, and what I want you to do is think about it and relate this to the referendum. And we seek all Australians to show their true colours. I know that polls aren't great at the moment, and that's polls, and it's beyond a red tie and a blue tie thing. It's beyond politics, it's beyond media. It's every one of us determining what this country is going to be. So let's not collude with the darkness of the past, but move to the light of the future. And when we do it, let us draw from ourselves the true colours. And so I'm going to hand over, as our final part of the night, to Brianna Lee, Wemba Wemba woman, Koori Academy of Excellence participant, and a rising star in this nation. Brianna, it's over to you.
Don't be discouraged, oh I realize it's hard to take courage in a world full of people. You can lose sight of it all, and the darkness inside you can make you feel so small. And I see your true colors shining through. I see your true
Thank you very much for that. My final act of the night, Stan. Sorry, Joy. My final act of the night, Stan. I did a keynote at the Sydney Business School for Deakin a couple of weeks ago, and they gave me a present. And I'm usually not into re-gifting, but they gave me some coronation biscuits. And I thought, there's only one person. We'll have a cup of tea and some biscuits, mate. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Brothers, sisters, countrymen, colleagues. Sorry, Joy's still laughing. I just thought it was so suitable. When I stood there like you stand saying, why would they give a blackfella coronation cookie?
We'll take it up to Dad.
Yeah. So thank you very much tonight. On the board behind us, we've got the next oration, the Brooks oration, with Lord Mayor Sally Capp, so keep that in your diary. But thank you for coming to the second Indigenous oration, and hope you come back for the third one next year. And may the ancestral spirits that got you here safe tonight get you home just as safe. Travel safe, everyone, and thank you very much.